right, guys, sorry about that. I need to apparently upgrade my Screencastify account so that I can make a video longer than 10 minutes. All right, so where were we? Again, we're going step by step, just like we did with our order of ops, and justifying each step with a property. So the first thing we did was 9 divided by 3 is 3. And that's the substitution property. We're just taking an equivalent expression and substituting it for another expression. The next thing we would do is 3 minus 0, 3 minus 3 is 0. So that's the next step we did. And again, that's just substitution, substituting an equivalent expression for another one. Then we take 24 minus 1, 24 times 1, and that equals 24. And we're not going to call this substitution this time because we have something a little more specific that we can use, and that's the multiplicative identity, where 24 times 1 is still equal to 24. He gets to keep his identity. And I know you might say, well, I could also just call that substitution. And you're right, but we always want to use the most specific property that we're talking about. And so multiplicative identity is the most specific here. Then we can do 5 times 0 is 0. And that's the multiplicative property of 0, that any number times 0 is 0. Then we can simplify 24 minus 8, and that is 16, and that is substitution. And then finally, we can do 16 plus 0 is 16. And that's the additive identity, that 16 plus 0 gets to keep his identity of 16. So again, the math we're doing here is not anything new. It's just order of operations. But the justification is what we're doing new today by naming each step and justifying why we can do each one. Let's take a look at a second example, and this one is more using the commutative and associative properties. In this first step, what's different here versus up here? And hopefully you're noticing that it's the order that changed. And so step 1, we used the commutative property, and I'm just going to abbreviate a little bit here because we changed the order. Then the next thing is we grouped it. And so that's going to be the associative property because we grouped it differently. Then step 3, we're just multiplying. So you could call that the substitution property. We're just multiplying. And finally, the last step is the same thing. We're just substituting an equivalent expression in by multiplying. So that's a quick and easy one, just recognizing when we're changing the order of things versus changing the grouping of things. Okay, now here's our last one, and we're gonna, if you want to pause the video and try this on your own first, great. Unpause it when you're ready to check it. If you're still not sure what's going on, stick with me and we'll just do it together. So the first thing is, here's our big, long, ugly, scary problem. But again, if we break it down step by step, it's not so bad. So our order of operations would say that we're going to go to our grouping symbols and we're going to do the division in there, 6 divided by 3. That's going to give us 2. So that's the first thing we're doing. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Everything else just gets copied because we haven't changed anything else yet. And then let's justify that. That was just simply substitution. Okay, we substituted 2 in for 6 divided by 3. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to finish off this grouping symbol. 2 minus 2 is 0. Again, that's substitution. Nothing else has changed, so I'm just going to copy everything else. Sorry for my bad handwriting. Then we're going to do our multiplications and our divisions. We don't have any divisions, we just have multiplications. So 18 times 1 is the first one we're going to do. So that's 18. Keep everything else the same. And 18 times 1, that's using the multiplicative identity. Okay, and again, that's more specific than saying the substitution. Then we're going to do the 3 times 2, because remember when we multiply, we go left to right. So 3 times 2 is 6. Well, that one's just substitution. Okay, the next one, we're going to multiply 2 times 0, which is 0. Well, that's the multiplicative property of 0. All right, then finally, we can do our additions and subtractions. And remember, these go in order from left to right. So 18 minus 6 is 12, plus 0. That's the substitution property. And our last equal sign got chopped off there. 12 plus 0 is 12, and that's the additive identity that allows us to do that, because any number plus 0 gets to keep his identity of 12. And that's it. We will practice this a little bit more in class tomorrow, as well as finish up today's in-class work that we didn't quite get wrapped up. And we'll end the week there. Have a good night, everybody.